Another award, Shania.
I know, I can't believe it.
Well, I'm going to hold this up, and maybe you can tell everybody what it is. Let's see if we can get a shot. There it is.
This basically represents 1 million sales in Canada.
For The Woman in Me.
For the album The Woman in Me, which is, and it's the Diamond Award, which is a great feat for me.
For anybody?
For anyone, I'm told, yes. I'm told that this is quite the exception, and that it's very extraordinary. But I think for me as a Canadian, it just is even bigger than life.
As I said, you've been doing all of this since you were a little girl. Your mom and dad used to take you out to perform. To what do you attribute this incredible success in the last year?
Oh, to a lifelong career, because of the fact that I started so young, and because of the fact that my parents were so dedicated, and because my whole family has supported me all of this time, and there's just been so many things along the way that's contributed to what's happening to me right now. I started writing songs from the age of 10 years old, performing in bars, and basically anywhere my parents could get me in. I was, you know, doing Golden Manors and community centers and telethons from the age of 8 years old, and
so
never
you're
stopped.
only 30, but you've been performing for more than 20 years.
That's right. That, on a very serious level. You know, I had a very active childhood career.
When you say your parents, and I think I've read in a couple of places, they were almost obsessed with this. Was it at the time something you wanted to do, or were you saying to them, why are you getting me up at 1 o'clock in the morning to go and do this? I want to sleep.
I know. Well, a little bit of both. I mean, I was also very obsessed by music. I've always, that obsession has always been there from a very, very young age. And it's my parents that picked up on that obsession. I mean, they wouldn't have been obsessed had I not had this desire and drive. They just thought that it was something that they needed to run with. And I mean, you know, adults or parents in general, I think, just they see the future for their kids, you know, way far ahead, you know. So they just saw something that in me that they felt they needed to
the singer in
to
you.
Nurture, you know, to nurture, and they did, and you know, it's like when you're a kid, you know, if you're a child athlete, for instance, you know, you can take your kid to lessons, you can get a coach for your child, you can get them involved in all kinds of community things and with the school and all that to develop them. But what do you do with a singer? You know, what do you really do with especially a commercial type artist, someone who writes songs, contemporary music?
And you're in a small town. You're in Timmins.
Small town. So they created a school for me. They brought me to clubs, they brought me to community centers, and they brought me to every stage and created stages for me. And that was my education through my childhood.
The things that you wrote and sang about when you were 8 and 9 and 10, it was incredible love songs, people who'd been hurt and tortured by relationships. Where did you get all that stuff from? You were only 9. How would you know it? Oh,
listening to Tammy Wynette and, you know, Dolly Parton, and I guess just listening to other music. I dissected songs and music from a very, very young age. And experimented with it. And I just listened very, very closely to the lyrics. I listened very closely to the music and the arrangements and all those sorts of things. So I was very influenced by adult music. You know, I was listening to, very, very closely listening to Dolly Parton songs, for instance, and she writes her own music, so that she was a very good influence for me as a singer-songwriter.
And Karen Carpenter, too, you listened to?
The Carpenters, yeah, just beautiful music. All kinds of people, Charlie Pride, Gladys Knight, Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, a lot of terrific singer-songwriters.
So as this started to emerge, I mean, what kind of a kid did it make you? Were you a loner in your room writing songs?
I was pretty much that, yeah. You know, I was the type of kid that would sneak off on my own with my guitar out into the woods or into the backyard, start up a fire, and sit there for hours and just write songs. And this is what I did to entertain myself. Or I would hide in a closet somewhere, and you know, I never wanted it was a very private thing. I never really wanted anyone to know what I was doing. It was my playtime, and instead of playing with Barbie dolls or whatever, I played with music.
Now, you are, although it seems kind of odd because you're everywhere and you're on stages everywhere, but you do try to maintain a little bit of that reclusiveness even today.
Absolutely. I live in a very remote area. I live in the wilderness, in the Adirondacks. I live on a lake. literally in the middle of the bush. And I spend a lot of my time outdoors. I plant trees, and
This is stuff you used to do with your dad.
yes, and I miss it very, very much. We planted millions of trees every year. We had about, a 5-month season every year. And for about 5 years, I would go out with my dad, and my sister would join in as well. And I would basically form a crew, and we would go and plant trees, and we'd live out in the bush, and basically, bathe in the lake, and
This sure isn't
eat
Barbie
with a hard
dolls,
hat
is it?
on. No, exactly. But I loved it. I really loved it. I'm really a tomboy at heart, and I love to get out there and get my hands dirty and work hard, good physical hard work. And I wrote so many songs and came up with so many creative ideas during that time.
Okay, so where does the tomboy, reclusive, young, quiet, shy girl come up with, whose bed have your boots been under?
Well, I'll tell you. I think that when you start off as a child being very reclusive, because I was very much that way. I wasn't a sociable child at all. And you're shy, and you're lost in your music and in your solitude. I think that the only way you can become the entertainer, which was what I had to do if I was going to develop at all as an artist. I would have been a closet songwriter.
Right.
I mean, how would I have ever made a career out of this? The only way to do that is almost to become a chameleon, and to have a mental switch where you can actually just turn on to being this entertainer. And I can do it now. I mean, I went through a long period of time as a kid where I would just be shaking in my boots, and I mean, I would literally wet my pants. I was so scared. I'm not kidding. I was so terrified. And my parents got me over it by making me, and this is where the word obsession comes in.
Yeah.
If my parents had not have been as obsessed or as strong-minded about this,